Flop files, everyone. I am so glad you're here for today's explainer because we're diving into something that literally impacts almost all of us the second we crash on the couch after a long day. We're unpacking Netflix's data-driven strategy. You know, the corporate versus consumer divide. We're going to look at that wild friction between what we actually want as viewers and what the cold, hard math of the business absolutely demands.
To kick things off, just think about some of these massive cultural hits. We're talking global phenomenons like Squid Game, Three Body Problem, The Night Agent, beloved adaptations like One Piece, and huge fan favorites like Daredevil or BoJack Horseman. We invest hours and hours of our lives into these worlds, right? But have you ever wondered why you always feel this tiny bit of anxiety watching them? Like, why do even the most critically acclaimed shows never really seem safe from the chopping block? Well, the answers are actually hiding right there in the platform's data and business models, and that is exactly what we're exposing today.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our agenda for today. First, the streaming disconnect. Then, why your shows get canceled. After that, the password crackdown, followed by pushing the ad tier, and finally, record profits versus brand risk.
Section 1. The streaming disconnect.
So let's talk about the growing gap between what we desperately want to watch and what the business actually gives us. Take a look at this quote from a deeply engaged TV discussion forum on Reddit. I think it perfectly captures our modern frustration. User Joe Sandwich wrote, "Anytime you focus too much on the numbers, you lose the human element of artistry. I'm getting real sick of only getting 10 episodes and then having to wait a year and a half." Man, I'm sure so many of us can empathize with that. You get super invested in a highly serialized story, only to have it ripped away, or you're left hanging for literally years. We just want a satisfying ending and a consistent human connection to the art.
But here's the reality check, and this comes straight from a recent Enders analysis report. Despite all that very loud, very real online outrage about cancellations and wait times, Netflix's strategy is a massive, unprecedented financial success. In Q4 of 2024, they hit over 302 million subscribers globally. They added a record 18.9 million subscriptions in that quarter alone, and they drove their quarterly revenue over the $10 billion mark for the very first time. So while we're all venting our frustrations on social media, the corporate data says their strategy is working flawlessly.
Section 2. Why your shows get canceled.
Let's shift our focus to the actual mechanics behind those heartbreaking cancellation notices. Like, why do they do it? So the crucial point is this. Netflix is unapologetically data-driven. Their decisions are heavily based on algorithms. First up, there's the infamous 2 to 3 season rule. Reports show that if a series hasn't broken out in a massive way right out of the gate, the algorithm just dictates there's no significant growth potential beyond season 2 or 3. Plus, contracts often include back-end pay bumps that escalate a lot after season 3, which makes the show way more expensive to produce. Next, season lengths were slashed. They went from the traditional 13 episodes down to 10 or less. Why? Because the data showed that any more than that simply didn't add value to optimal viewer consumption. Finally, and honestly this is the real kicker, there's a standard lockout clause. When a show gets axed, it is legally blocked from airing on a competing network or platform for 2 to 3 years. That's exactly why a fan favorite like Daredevil couldn't just immediately hop over to another network to finish its story. It was legally trapped.
Another really astute user in that same discussion forum pointed out a fundamental shift in the whole television landscape. They said, longevity is no longer the goal, it's variety and quantity. Think about it. In the old days of network TV, the golden goal was to hit 100 episodes so a show could be sold into lucrative syndication. Today, that goal is totally dead. The platform just wants a vast, flexible library of shorter series. They want to dip their toes into a bunch of niche audiences, see what sticks, and quickly move on if the numbers don't absolutely explode.
Section 3. The password sharing crackdown. Now, let's introduce the next massive shift in the viewer experience. This was heavily analyzed in a recent study by the International Journal for Multidisciplinary Research. For years, sharing your account with your ex, your roommate, or your parents was just part of the culture. Netflix even tweeted about it back in the day. The study estimates this affected over 100 million households globally. That is a massive revenue leak. But instead of just a blanket ban on everyone, they executed this brilliantly ruthless monetization tactic. They introduced extra member fees. They managed to convert millions of those so-called freeloaders into actual paying users and funneled the more price-sensitive folks right into their new, cheaper, ad-supported tiers. It was a staggering success for their overall subscriber count.
Section 4. Pushing the ad tier.
And this is the strategy that's quietly but fundamentally transforming how we actually watch the platform today. Now, what's really interesting here is the rapid adoption of advertising. According to Ender's analysis, in Q4 of 2024, an incredible 55% of all new signups in territories where ads are available chose the ad-supported tier. That's right, a majority of new users are now willingly choosing to watch commercials. And here's a totally fascinating detail from the data. The engagement on the ads plan, meaning the actual hours viewed per membership, is basically identical to the engagement on the standard ad-free plan.
But, this adoption wasn't exactly accidental. It was driven by an absolute masterclass in psychological pricing. Netflix slowly hid and then entirely closed their middle ground, basic ad-free tier. This aggressive tiering strategy essentially forced long-standing subscribers to make a hard choice. You either accept a cheaper ad-supported plan or you pay a steep premium, which has risen to $24.99 a month in the US for the top tier. By manipulating the tiers like this, Netflix dramatically scaled its advertising audience, and they provided advertisers with a highly valuable demographic of viewers who, generally speaking, don't watch traditional commercial television.
Section 5. Record profits versus brand risk.
Let's bring this explainer home by weighing these undeniable short-term financial victories against the long-term trust of the consumer. And this brilliantly illustrates the delicate tightrope the company is currently walking. What we're looking at here is a SWOT analysis, straight out of the International Journal for Multidisciplinary Research case study. Look at the strengths: huge revenue growth, higher average revenue per user, and a massive signal of financial discipline to Wall Street investors. They're even setting an industry precedent, which is an opportunity that competitors are now scrambling to follow. But you really have to look at the weaknesses and challenges. They risk alienating their most loyal customers, generating intense negative social media sentiment, and fueling subscription fatigue. Most dangerously, as they lock down accounts and jack up prices, academic evidence shows an increasing risk of pushing consumers right back into the arms of digital piracy.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative question. Will the relentless, data-driven pursuit of revenue eventually break the bonds between Netflix and its audience? Right now, looking at the financial reports, the strategy is an absolute triumph. But as prices keep climbing, as beloved shows get canceled after just 2 seasons, and as ads become the new norm, we really have to wonder if that consumer goodwill is a finite resource. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I hope this deep dive really helped clarify the complex forces shaping your streaming queue. Keep asking questions, keep digging into the data, and I'll catch you next time.